European ambitions before World War I. From the late 15th century onwards, European powers embarked on a relentless drive to expand their influence across the globe. Spain, Portugal, Britain, France, and later Germany and Italy ventured beyond their borders, motivated by the search for wealth, trade routes, colonies, and natural resources. By the mid-19th century, empires had established dominions on every continent, each with ambitions that extended far beyond their shores. These empires did not act entirely in isolation. Diplomatic agreements, treaties, and conferences attempted to manage competing ambitions. One such event was the Berlin Conference of 1884, which sought to regulate the partition of Africa among European powers. While these arrangements temporarily reduced direct conflicts, they also institutionalized competition, creating a delicate balance of power. By 1914, Europe's great powers were intertwined in complex alliances. Imperial ambitions, economic interests, and nationalist fervor created a world ready for both cooperation and conflict. Each empire sought to secure resources, labor, and strategic territories, believing that domination was both a right and a necessity. Yet, despite shared goals of expansion, underlying rivalries simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the catalyst that would ignite a global war. This prelude provides a brief yet crucial understanding. Europe's ambitions were vast, coordinated at times, but fundamentally competitive. It is this landscape that set the stage for the First World War, a war that would shatter empires, redraw borders, and redefine global power. World War I and a collapse trigger. The First World War, which erupted in 1914, brought these imperial ambitions into violent collision. Alliances formed decades earlier were tested in brutal campaigns. Germany, Austro-Hungary, Britain, France, Russia, and Italy mobilized millions of soldiers, moving with strategies shaped by decades of planning and geopolitical analysis. During the war, the European powers suffered immense losses. Cities were destroyed, economies strained, and entire generations of men were lost to the battlefields. Analysts and observers of the time, such as Halford Mackinder, warned about the fragility of the continental balance, noting how unchecked military ambitions could destabilize Europe. Alfred Thayer Mahan emphasized the importance of naval supremacy, observing that control of seas would determine the outcome of global contests. Leaders like Georges Clemenceau and Woodrow Wilson debated how to restrain aggression while seeking a lasting peace. Despite these warnings, the war pushed empires to their limits. Germany faced blockades, severe casualties, and internal strife. Austria-Hungary fragmented under pressure, while the Ottoman Empire struggled to maintain its territories. The war revealed not only the vulnerabilities of Europe's great powers, but also the consequences of decades of unchecked imperial ambition. By the time the armistice was signed in November 1918, the foundations of European empires were shaken, leaving a world uncertain and fragile. Post-war aftermath: political, economic, and social upheaval. With the war concluded, world leaders convened to redefine the map of Europe and the world. The Treaty of Versailles, signed in 1919, imposed strict reparations on Germany, demanded territorial concessions, and limited its military capacity. John Maynard Keynes, a British economist observing the process, warned that excessive economic penalties could destabilize Europe, sowing the seeds of future unrest. Across the continent, empires dissolved. Austria-Hungary split into Austria, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia. The Ottoman Empire ceded large parts of its Middle Eastern territories to Britain and France under mandates, while Russia, weakened by revolution and civil war, emerged as the Soviet Union. Germany faced both political and economic collapse, struggling with hyperinflation, unemployment, and social unrest. Society, too, had been transformed. Women who had entered the workforce during the war demanded rights and recognition. Refugees sought to rebuild lives amid destroyed cities. Technology and infrastructure, developed for war, were now repurposed for civilian life. Analysts like Winston Churchill observed the tenuous stability of the continent, while Lenin and Trotsky considered the weakened state of European empires as opportunities for ideological expansion. The immediate post-war years were marked by uncertainty. Governments attempted to rebuild economies, restore social order, and redefine political authority. The League of Nations was established in 1920 as a mechanism to prevent future conflicts and mediate disputes, though its effectiveness remained limited. What emerged was a world both fragile and dynamic, a world in which old empires had crumbled and new nations had arisen, reshaping the global landscape. Part 4. Emergence of New Powers and the Global Transformation. As European powers struggled to recover, new global players began to assert themselves. The United States, largely untouched by the physical destruction of the war, emerged as a major economic and political power. Japan expanded its influence in Asia, modernizing its military and economy. The Soviet Union consolidated control over vast territories, asserting ideological influence over neighboring regions. The world map had been fundamentally altered. Germany was diminished, Austro-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire ceased to exist as unified entities, and new nations like Poland, the Baltic states, and Czechoslovakia appeared. Analysts and observers, from Keynes to Churchill, cautioned that these transformations, while stabilizing in some ways, also introduced new uncertainties. Alliances were being tested, borders were fluid, and the ambitions that had driven European empires had not vanished. They were now reshaped in a world of emerging powers. In this transformed global landscape, the ambitions of the past collided with the realities of the present. Resources, labor, and influence were no longer solely the domain of European powers. The post-war era became a canvas of both opportunity and caution, highlighting the fragility of empires and the rise of new actors in global politics. The story of the world after the First World War is one of collapse and reconstruction, of loss and renewal, and of a geopolitical order forever changed.